So if you missed class or you just want a refresher, this is Grammar Unit 1, Exercise 5, Sentences 3, 4, and 5. So this is what we did in class together today. So what we're doing, what we're working on is the intransitive verb pattern, so simple action, and then we were using our process to kind of help us determine when we find a preposition, is it part of a prepositional phrase? Does it belong with our verb inside those verb lines, because it's called technically a particle. You're not going to have to know that word necessarily. Or is that preposition a preposition in form and it's functioning as an adverb? Okay, so if we take a look at number 3, we're still following our process, we're just clarifying kind of this step here, number 3. So the baby turned over by himself. So if you look at your sentence, you've got turned as your verb, you have two prepositions, over and by. Excuse me. And so by himself, we can recognize that's a prepositional phrase because himself is a noun. We've got the baby, which is a noun phrase. And so we have to figure out, is it turned? Is he changing his direction? Or is it turned over? Like maybe this is a sports game and he lost possession of the ball. In this case, the baby's changing directions. He's not a football player. Coach Miller's not going to be yelling at him. So what we really want is he changed his direction. And so this is actually that third case where fails the meaning test, right? Because we don't want that combined meaning. You can move it, right? So over the baby turned, and you can always sort of test it that way to confirm. If over the baby turned by himself makes sense, I mean, it sounds a little awkward, but it does make sense, then you know you have a preposition in form and an adverb in function. So when we go left to right here, the baby's a noun phrase. We said turned as our verb. You just label over as a prep. Okay, don't put prep phrase because it's not a prep phrase. We're circling those anyway. So if you wanted to write prep phrase, you certainly could, but you don't have to. I usually like the dotted lines for everything outside of the verb, but lines are not really that big of a deal to me. So the prep phrase, you could certainly write that there, okay? So when we look at our function, so now we have two things that you always have with intransitive verbs, right? A subject and an intransitive verb. So that's the baby and turned. And then any extra boxes are going to be an adjective or an adverb in their function because they're going to be the non-essential kind of modifiers. So over tells us how the baby is turning, and so that's an adverb. And then by himself also kind of tells us how. So we would draw our arrow to the verb, right? Or you could write down at the bottom if you'd like, adverb, right? Because this is how. Over is like where or how. Either one of those would be fine question-wise. They result in the same kind of function. Okay, so these are all pattern 6. So if we take a look at number 4, the students turned around in their seats. So we have turned as our verb again. So we have around is a preposition and in, and those are two separate prepositions. So when we look at our sentence, we've got their seats and we've got the students are noun phrases. So just looking at our sentence, in their seats, that makes sense. That's sort of like a where are they doing whatever it is that they're doing. So we're going to circle that prepositional phrase because that makes sense to sort of be the first word of a prepositional phrase. But then we have to figure out what is around. So turn around, like if a student turns around their grade, right, sort of, significant change, 180-degree kind of change, that's kind of one meaning. Or are we kind of changing just a basic direction, okay? So major change, directional change. So in this case, the students aren't turning around their grade, right? They're just changing their direction. This is kind of how, right? Around, so they're swiveling around, and then this is where. So what we really want meaning-wise is just turned. They're just changing their direction. So we exclude around, again, from our verb. So we have noun phrase, prep, and that prepositional phrase we've already circled. So then we have subject, an intransitive verb, and then these two have to be either an adverb or an adjective. And so both of these are adverbs. And their seat is where. Number 5, a big crowd turned out for the parade. So turned is our verb. We have out as a preposition, and for is a preposition. So when we look at our sentence, we have a big crowd is a noun phrase, the parade is a noun phrase. So I like to group things. It makes it a little bit easier. So I'll underline my noun phrases sometimes when I have a complex sentence. Makes it easier for me to see, okay, for the parade, that kind of belongs together. This is really why somebody does something. So that'll be an adverb. So is it turned or is it turned out? So is the crowd changing directions, like they turned around the corner, or are they arriving? Because turned out, you know, if you're a dancer, that has to do with your foot position. If you have a party, people show up to the party, and that's really what's going on here. There's some sort of a celebration, right, the parade, and the big crowd is showing up. And so what we really want is they're not changing directions, they're arriving. So we want to include that preposition inside of those verb lines. So meaning test is really kind of the most useful one. If you're still not sold on the meaning test, you can always double check. If we say out a big crowd turned for the parade, then we really have sort of that directional change. It almost makes it seem as though they're going around something and they're splitting up. And that's not what we want here. So that doesn't work, and so we want to keep that preposition inside of the verb lines. Over here, it worked, right? Over the baby turned, around the students turned. Here it doesn't. So a big crowd is our noun phrase. For the parade, we said it's prepositional phrase. So we've got subject, intransitive verb, and that goes to our verb, right? Why.